Hi friends, welcome to Beautifully Bookish Bethany. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review of A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. Okay, so I actually have a super spoilery reading vlog for this book, so if you want to hear kind of my spoilery real-time reactions, you can check that out and I will link it up above. But it's a title that I thought also warranted a separate review that is spoiler-free or meant for people who aren't sure if they want to pick it up or aren't sure what to think about it. And I feel like even more so since apparently this has become quite a controversial book, which I guess I should have expected. Okay, so A Court of Silver Flames is the latest book in the ACOTAR series, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Sarah J Maas is a very popular and polarizing author. She has a specific type of book she writes. She has a specific writing style, although we are going to get into the fact that some things are definitely changing, I think, in this book, but she is not everybody's cup of tea, which is fine. And I'm going to tell you up front, if you hate Sarah J Maas's writing, if you don't like her style, if you don't like her authorial voice, this book is not going to make you change your mind. That said, if you already enjoy things about what Sarah J Maas does or have liked some of her books, even if you think that they're not perfect, I think that A Court of Silver Flames is arguably the best book that she's ever written. So we're going to talk about why I feel that way, what I think about it. But I'm going to tell you up front, I really, really loved this book. And I think that is partly controversial because there are people who don't like what she does for various reasons, but also because there are some big content warnings in this book. And I think there are people who did not like the way that those things were handled, did not like that some of those things were in here. I don't feel the same way, but my perspective is not the only one. So, you know, I'm gonna have a section where I do give content warnings, including the ones that are slightly spoilery, because I think it's important information to have going in if those are things that are going to bother you, but there it is. So A Court of Silver Flames is Nesta's book, and Nesta is also a polarizing character. She's very prickly, she's damaged, she's been through a lot of trauma throughout her life, she's acting out because of it, she's experiencing symptoms of PTSD, and this book, I think what makes this such a powerful book to me is that it is really a book about trauma and healing. This is, as much as it is a romance, and we will get to that because in this book Sarah J Maas is hardcore leaning into the fact that she is now pivoting to write adult romance and not YA, not new adult. This is like fully adult steamy romance. But to me, what makes this such a powerful book is that it is a book that is about trauma and healing, and it is about Nesta's journey to find healing and deal with her PTSD, deal with her mental health issues, and find peace and love. And I loved it. It made me really emotional. What's funny is going into this, I started the reading vlog because I was like, look, I enjoy Sarah J Maas's books. I think they're fun. I will probably enjoy this on the level of like a 3.5 or 4 star because I usually do. ACOTAR is not my favorite series of hers, and so my expectations of this were, it's going to be a good time, people are probably going to be interested in the reading vlog, so I'm going to vlog it. No one was more surprised than me to discover that I deeply connected emotionally with this book and with Nesta's journey. I loved it. I think this is possibly my favorite, at least one of my favorite books that she has ever written, and I think it's going to be one of my favorite books of 2021. Nesta is a very different character for Sarah J Maas. She is much more damaged, she's much more broken, she's also seriously a badass, and she carries a lot of anger that she needs to work through. And I love the fact that this book gives space for her to mess up and gives space for her to be angry and express that anger and face her fear and face her pain and take as long as she needs to in that process, because like that's real, you know? I just love this. I also love the female friendship in this book. The thing that made me cry was the female friendship, and she eventually develops these very close friendships with 2 other women who also have broken pasts, and just seeing the sisterhood and the unconditional love and the ability for them to open up to each other and share their pain and love each other through it, and then like find healing and find their own strength. I was just like crying. Like, it was just so beautiful. I love it so much. And you know, those were the things that I think were most powerful to me, but also there's the romance with Cassian. And I think in a lot of reviews, you're going to see people giggling over the sex, because is there a lot of sex in this book? Yeah, there is. There's a lot of sex in this book. Like, Sarah J Maas is making a statement and saying, hey, look, I am not a YA author anymore. I'm an adult romance author. Is it more explicitly described sex than what we've gotten from her in the past? Yup, it is. Is it more intense? Yup. Is it unusual for the genre that she's writing in? Is it unusual for adult fantasy or paranormal romance? No, it's really not. Given the length of the book, like, are there a lot of sex scenes? Yeah. Is it excessive for the length of the book? No. It's not. And they make sense. They move forward the plot, they move forward the characters, and they fit with who Nesta is, they fit with her relationship with Cassian, they fit the issues that she is working through. And so I think when eventually you see them moving from just having sex to making love, it's so apparent and it's so beautiful, and also got me emotional. So yeah, I loved this book a whole lot. There is a subplot in this book that is somewhat spoilery, so I'm going to put this in the spoiler content warning section, but there is a subplot in this book that has been controversial, and there are people who don't like that it was included, and I disagree. If you know, you know. I feel like this entire book, subplots with different side characters as well as Nesta's journey, and I mean multiple subplots with characters, this entire book is really a book about the trauma that women experience. And I love the fact that on page, Sarah J Maas deals with and addresses many different versions of what that trauma can be, including things that we frequently don't talk about, even though they are common. So, for people who are saying that there are things being used in here just like to be shocking, or just as like a plot device with no care for the reader, I disagree. I disagree, and I think that probably writing some of those things, and you know, Sarah J Maas has been open about her own struggles with mental health in the past year and finding healing and finding her inner strength, and has also touched on other types of trauma she's experienced that are quite similar to some of the controversial ones that are in this book. And as somebody who has also experienced that, I loved that it was on the page. Not everybody's going to want to read it, and that's fine. And that's why we're going to talk about content warnings, because I think it's important to know what they are and know what works for you and what doesn't. But I loved that it was on page. I think it's important to have depictions of things that really do happen, and I would imagine it would be cathartic to write about. So I think basically you're probably going to hear, I feel like there's going to be a lot of different kinds of reviews you're going to see about this book. You're going to have some like gushing sort of, this was just amazing, and like everything she writes is always amazing. And like, that's not what this is for me, at least. Like, I do enjoy her books, but I don't think they're all like the most amazing literary thing out there necessarily. I do find her books really comforting. I think what I realized reading this is she does a really great job of writing these cozy domestic scenes that break up the tension and break up the action. And for my personal taste as a reader, I love those scenes. I find them comforting. It makes me just enjoy, it makes it a pleasure to read her books. But I totally get why they're irritating for some other people. That said, I think you're gonna get some gushy, everything she does is perfect reviews. I think you're gonna get some nitpicky, I hate her writing style, I hate everything she does, this is so dumb, like it's not a fully fleshed out fantasy world reviews, which like, are they like wrong about the things that she does? no, but like that's not the book she's writing, so I don't care. Like, it doesn't bother me. So, but if it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea, and that's fine. I also think you're gonna see some like silly giggly reviews about like, hee, there's so much sex. And it's really intense sex, and they talk a lot about body fluids, and like, okay. I mean, she's, you know, like there's a reason that they are positioning her alongside authors like Cressley Cole and J.R. Ward right now. Like, she is pivoting in her writing career to being an adult romance author, and I think this like definitively places her there. That's what it is. And then I think you're gonna have some reviews where people are really upset about the potentially triggering content in these books and won't like that it was there, won't like that it was on page. You know, I think it's completely valid to not like it. I think it's completely valid to not want to read it. And, you know, I think what's difficult about a book like this, where there weren't a lot of early reviews, people weren't given a lot of content warnings ahead of time. And I do think this is a book where content warnings are warranted. Okay, so if you couldn't tell, I feel quite passionately about this book. It really was an emotional journey for me. I loved it a lot. And I think it's a powerful and important book, and I love Nesta as a character. She's messy, she's broken, she's finding healing. She's a prickly woman, and I'm here for it. I love it. So with that said, we are going to talk about some content warnings, which honestly, I don't actually think are that spoilery, but like people have such varied sensitivities to spoilers, so I'm letting you know. Some of them are things that happen near the end of the book, so you've been warned. Things that are included here, obviously there is a lot of mental health related stuff. There is anxiety, there are moments of PTSD, there are flashbacks, there are, you know, there's a lot of like trauma stuff here. There's also remembered trauma that's not like explicitly described on page, but is being recapped in remembered stories. This does include violent death of a parent. It includes parental physical abuse. It includes a character who was raped during wartime and watched her sister be beheaded. So there's that sort of thing. And then the big controversial thing in here is near the end of the book, there's a scene of traumatic childbirth and near death for both the mother and child. I mean, obviously, because magical reasons and whatever, like, there isn't actual death, but there is a very intense traumatic birth scene. And so again, as somebody who has experienced traumatic birth and has had symptoms of PTSD, not everybody, you know, like, we are not a monolith. There are people who have been through it and probably don't want to see it on the page and find it triggering, and that I think is valid. I guess I have a different experience that I find it affirming. Now I'm gonna, y'all, I did not mean to get emotional in doing this review, you guys. Oh my goodness. Whew, okay, because I have feelings about this. I find it affirming to see that experience recognized on the page, because it is much more common than people like to talk about. And it doesn't get talked about a lot. We don't talk a lot about miscarriage, traumatic childbirth, infertility, and so many women experience those things. So if anybody wasn't expecting that content and was in any way harmed by reading it without knowing it was there, I'm sorry that happened. Not that it's like my fault, but I sympathize, I guess. But I just know that for me, I find it to be really validating to see like the reality of things that can happen on the page in a major book, where it's not like the whole plot. And like, I'm glad there was a happy ending. Who wanted it to like have a negative ending? But just acknowledging that it happens, acknowledging high-risk pregnancies. And I do know Sarah J Maas has talked about having had an emergency C-section with her child, and I'm guessing that probably some of it might have been cathartic of like writing about that experience. Anyway, clearly I have very strong feelings about this book, and I think other people are going to too, which is fine. And as I said earlier, I didn't go into this expecting to love it. I expected to have a good time with it, and this is gonna end up being one of my favorite books. Who knew? Yeah, so there you go. Those are my thoughts on A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. I think it's a great book. I loved it a lot. I see why it's not going to work for everyone. I see why it's not everybody's cup of tea. But I really wanted to do a standalone review because it's a book that surprisingly means a whole lot to me. A whole hell of a lot. So there it is. Talk to me in the comments down below. If you have thoughts or feelings on anything I talked about in this video, feel free to share them. Please do be respectful. Because there's a lot of like sensitive stuff here. So yeah, that's it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more, and if you want to support the work of the channel, check out the Patreon linked down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.